There's probably 3 other people that are thinking, oh, should I ask that or not? So ask any question you have, and everybody participate. You know, we're here of all different experience levels, and maybe I thought that might be a good thing to do. Who has never been gardening? Okay, that's a good thing. How about 5 years or less? Okay. 10 years? Okay. Anybody over 20? Okay.
I grew up on a farm, so this.
You grew up. Okay. That's good. I'm not going to ask how many years that is, so we'll be good. So I just thought we would just kind of do an outline and kind of have an open discussion of things from our experiences and ask questions, and we'll try to just kind of do this class or seminar, whatever you want to say, together. So why do we garden? Maybe that's a good first question. Why do we do it? It's a lot of work. Why? What do you think?
It might be a different answer for everyone.
Yeah, it could
The
be.
reason I do is because I want to have it be as nutrient dense as it can be. And
Yeah.
I trust that from our food system.
Yeah. Yeah, they've actually done tests of organically homegrown stuff. You know, you take a carrot that's homegrown and you buy something in the store, the chemicals are different in it. It's almost like 2 different foods, kind of just like eggs. You know, same thing. What else?
It's therapeutic.
Therapeutic, yeah. Find a little piece. Hey, Selena, how you doing? That's okay. What else? Why do we garden? Therapeutic, you know what's in it?
Helped me keep my sanity during COVID. When
Okay.
everything else was shut down and unpredictable and controversial. A carrot still grew a carrot seed, and you can still call it a carrot. You know,
Okay.
so.
That's good.
And it's fulfilling, you know, you feel like, I don't know, you feel good about it. You feel good about what you've done and growing your food.
Yeah.
There's nothing like just going out to your garden and putting everything on the table and it's all from your, getting in your hands.
Yeah. We do that every once in a while. We'll say, wow, other than that one thing, this was all from our garden. That's so cool. Yeah. And that's what this is all about, right? Self-sufficiency. You know, they talk about a food shortage. I don't know if you guys are in the scoop on that, but they're talking about that for next year with the cost of things. Just watching how things are. Welcome, welcome. Grab a chair.
Also, I like the other end of it too. I like preserving what I grow, whether it be freezing, canning, dehydrating, any of those things. It's just,
Yeah.
and I like sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, we share a lot from our garden. I like the taste of homegrown stuff, kind of goes along with the nutrients. Is there anybody that has never eaten a homegrown carrot? Everybody has. Okay. I was hoping I'd get somebody. Oh wow, this is amazing. All right. What plants or varieties of plants have worked well for you guys here in the Pacific Northwest? Pacific Northwest is a totally different environment than other places, right? Jan and I moved here from the Midwest. We lived in Wisconsin all our lives, gardened as kids, grew up there. Topsoil, black. What's fertilizer? You don't need fertilizer. You just grow it in this. Oh, it was crazy. So we rototilled every year. You know, that's just how we did it. We rototilled every year, and you had this topsoil and stirred it all up, and there were thousands of worms, and that's just what it was. But here, you know, when I first got here and put water on a plant, and it was like the ground was hygroscopic. It was repelling the water that I put down. I was like, what is this stuff? I couldn't realize it. I recognize it, but we'll get into that a little bit more. Sorry. So what fruits and vegetables work well here? Some work well here that don't work other places. And vice versa. Kale works good here.
Yes.
Yes. There's a lot of different varieties of kale.
Arulas and lettuce work great for us.
Yep.
We have salad here.
Yeah. How do you protect your salad, if you don't mind my asking, during the heat?
This year, I actually hit on a brand new strategy that was amazing, which is that I planted, we have a
Yeah.
We had an old garden and we expanded it and we did take out the milk beds and I planted grapes along that. And
Yeah.
last year I noticed, oh, everything behind that didn't grow because it was too much shade. So I went, oh, I'll put my lettuce there.
There you go.
So, you know,
Little microclimate.
yes, and it worked incredibly. Of course, it wasn't 103 degrees, but even in the lots and lots of 90
Yeah.
and 95s, I never put shade cloth anywhere.
Good.
It was behind the grapes. And
Yeah. So if you don't have that, a shade cloth she mentioned might work good for the lettuces. Lettuces are usually a cool weather crop on both ends of the season, you know, spring and fall. One thing that we've started to grow that really grows well in the heat, you might have seen this on some of the posts, this is sweet potatoes. Give me drought, give me 100-degree sunshine, 90-degree sunshine. This is the most eaten green in the world, is sweet potatoes. I'll let this go around. If you've never tasted a sweet potato leaf, it tastes like spinach. You can just tear off a hunk and do that. So there's something that we found that kind of worked during that heat period that we have here. What else? What else works good?
Well, I was really surprised that my green peppers grew like crazy.
Ooh.
I did them from starts,
Uh-huh.
but I just always thought that was a really hot climate thing, and I just had so many on one plant.
That's great.
Yeah, that really surprised me.
Yeah, and not even in the greenhouse.
No.
Out. Yep.
That's really good.
Yeah, we've these were from the greenhouse. They got in super late this year because of the spring that we had, which is bad. One thing that I've learned, and we're going to try this year, is peppers. I don't know if, raise your hand if you've done it. Peppers are a perennial plant.
Really?
So you can actually go out right now before it freezes, pick all your peppers, and you prune them down to the first branching. So there's like 3 inches on each branch, and take it inside somewhere that's not going to freeze. Put it in a sunny window or under a light, and you'll have that pepper plant next year. So you get an extra start all of a sudden. And you start researching that, and there's people online that, yeah, this is my 5th year with this one plant, and it's like 4 feet tall now, and gives hundreds of peppers. Kind of interesting. What other plants?
potatoes are always good.
Yeah. All different varieties of potatoes, yeah.
I mean, I think a lot, of course. We have, yeah, I'm sure we have 40 or 50 different food items that we show us.
Mm-hmm.
Our garden and so much.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few things that don't work that we haven't figured out yet.
Okay, like what?
Well, I actually grew some sweet potatoes that you said too.
Uh-huh.
I actually wanted to see if I could get them in the ground soon enough to grow sweet potatoes, and I dug them up finally today. They're little.
Yeah, they're pretty small.
So the sweet potatoes themselves, not really. And okra didn't work, and I'm not a good melon grower yet, but I know that there are varieties that work here, and I know it's just a matter of getting there. But we have so much. There's a lot of stuff.
Selena, you guys grow a melon, don't
Yeah,
you?
we grow melons, and I just, when I look for the seeds, I just always go by, you know, how many days to maturity you have to get the varieties that are sort of like maturity, and they tend to be smaller. And
So it's like a, what is it, 60 day or?
120.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I definitely have varieties for our area. I don't have to put them in this year. I don't think I have enough fertility.
You know, and it varies every year. I don't always know why. But one of the ones that we get pretty consistently is the little Korean oblong melon. And it's kind of like a sweet cucumber, like you can eat the whole thing and the seeds and everything, but I love them.
Those are so good.
And we always get those, and visas are a small green cantaloupe type melon. Visas are a really good variety. And then, but otherwise I just, you know, I play around with it, and I always try to grow Crenshaws, because you can't. But this year I got like amazing Crenshaws because we had the long hot season. You never know when you're gonna get that long hot season, so
Yeah.
I always put some stretch plants in for that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Good.
Another thing I really like growing is celery.
Oh, really?
It's just like,
Yeah.
it's like a weed in my house now.
Okay. Does it come back every year? Does it reseed itself?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was a volunteer this year from Yeah, I've already had volunteer from what I planted this year.
And we've tried celery, but we didn't have luck with
But
it.
the slugs ate them.
Oh, my slugs don't. Well, I've
I
got
want your
some
kind of
chickens
slugs
too,
then.
so they
That could
help
be-
with the slugs for sure.
We have really good luck with squash. Jan loves the, what is this called?
Cinderella.
Cinderella pumpkins and the delicatas.
That one's a mini Cinderella, and then we grow the big ones too.
Yeah. And then ground cherries. Is there anybody that hasn't had a ground cherry? I'll pass this around too if you want to try one. They're kind of like a tomatillo, but they're smaller. And with the rain we've had, they split. But yeah, squeeze them like that, it comes out. If they're green, they're going to be a little sour. They're sweeter than, they're tomato-like, but they're sweeter than tomato. And once you plant them, if one of these fall in your ground and you don't get it, you'll have 100 plants next year. So you can just spread them all around, and then you'll have 1,000 plants.
Tomatillos grow great too.
Yeah. Yep.
So we call the ground trees the babysitter plant.
The baby what?
The babysitter plant. We would plant them like
Oh.
at the end of the rows and then the kids would just sit there.
Yeah. You know? Nice. There's a pie that Jan has. If anybody ever wants a good pie recipe with ground cherries, Jan has that one. Any other plants anybody wants to talk about? Their favorites? Sweet peas? Peas, those are, I love those. You can plant those real early.
I've always had good luck with tomatoes.
Tomatoes, even outside.
Yeah, I started them in like January in-house.
Okay.
I made, actually, today made fried green tomatoes with
Yeah.
my leftover tomatoes.
That's awesome. Good.
When do you usually transport them out?
Well, this year I did too early and then I actually had to bring it back in.
Yeah.
I will sometimes wait for the volunteers to sprout from next year, or from the previous year, and then I know it's going to.
Oh, that's a good idea. Nice. And beets do really good for us. You guys do beets inside the greenhouse too, right?
Well,
Sometimes?
only because we're not cultivating rows outside of the greenhouse, otherwise I would never put beets in the greenhouse.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I thought maybe you're doing that to get them early. Maybe.
Well, that, I mean, yeah, we can extend the season on them, but.
Yeah. What's else? Basil. That does really good. And of course, mint. Okay, cool. So let's see. I think we're on. Is there anything that just really hasn't worked for you? You said okra. That's a hot pepper. That's a hot weather plant. We have not had really good luck with the bigger varieties of tomatoes yet.
And you definitely need a short season. Early to mid works, and the late ones, I just don't even plant anymore. But we get some big ones like the pink Berkeley tie-dye. Some of them get nice and big like that, and they're sort of a medium. Like you were saying, that there's a stretch. I always think of hot season crops as kind of a gambling crop.
Yeah.
You might get a warm September. We got warm till like mid-October this year.
Right.
But you just can't count it, so like plant enough stuff that's early to make sure that you're gonna get it, and then let some of the gambling crops.
Yeah.
That's how I think of it.
What was the variety that you had? We bought a lug from
Yeah,
you.
my favorite variety is big beef, because
Big beef.
it does well here, it has big ones in the beginning, and then they get smaller as the season goes on. And it's super disease resistant, and so it just does better. But the only problem is it's so productive and it gets so heavy, it's very hard to support it.
So that's an indeterminate
Yeah,
variety?
it's indeterminate, but it's not one of the super tall indeterminates, it's
Gotcha.
up in here.
Does everybody understand? Anybody not know what determinate and indeterminate means for tomatoes? So there's a determinate tomato. All of the fruit on the tomato plant will ripen at the same time. More or less, yeah. So if you want a can, all at once, plant a determinate tomato type. If you want to eat 4 or 5 every day, then you plant that indeterminate, and it goes for a longer time. Most of the cherry type tomatoes are indeterminates, and those are the ones that are, if you let them go, they'll go 10 feet, 12 feet high, and you got to train them, and there's different ways to prune them. as well, so that they stay under control a little bit better.
We've also had some traction in the decent luck about a greenhouse with basil.
Yeah.
You don't usually think of it because it's hot, but
Yeah, we do too.
we are like year-round basil independent now.
That's awesome.
We've grown up and raised it and
You got the pesto.
either way, we have enough to share.
Nice.
And we are.
Good. Okay, let's go ahead and go on to number 4. Talk about pests. What pests, meaning insects, mammals, etc., have you had problems with, and how have you overcome them, if you have? You don't have pests? I don't hear you.
Before we go to that,
Oh,
number 3, so I was gonna say that what things that have not worked well, until I got a greenhouse, carrots did not work well.
really?
Just too much compacted soil, even if it didn't start out that way, that was a huge problem, I
Okay.
think. Yeah.
For our carrots to make them grow good, I did almost 50% sand in that spot where I was going to grow carrots.
We always brought it for it.
And you broad fork it?
Yeah, I've had problems with carrots and beets also because it just compacts from the watering. And this year we did an experiment. I've been trying for both of those things. We dug out a section of row and replaced it with literal potting soil from the store just to see is it
Yeah.
us?
Yeah, right?
And they grew.
They grew
So it's
the soil.
and I don't think it's soil fertility because and then my soil
Yeah.
flat. I think it's just the compaction that
Yep.
finally when I had, probably the same soil that you had when you lived in the Midwest, finally had decent sized carrots and beautiful beets. So
Yeah. I made a raised bed and we planted carrots in it, and in that raised bed, which was it was probably a 3-foot high bed, it was 50%
so
sand.
you added sand from Alabama or something?
We have sand on our property.
Oh,
I was able to get a,
so you just transported
Yeah.
from one corner to the next.
yeah.
And I think we did do some potting soil in there though too, because we wanted it to be light.
That's what I'm planning to do next time, is make a little small raised thing just for carrots and just purchase soil because.
And you can get a lot of carrots out of a little spot because you can plant them so close together.
Yeah.
Was there anything else as far as
Yeah,
stuff?
that's another reason for gardening too. There are things that it's a lot cheaper growing your own than buying at the store.
Yeah, that's true.
If you don't count all your hours of working at
Right,
it to
yeah.
make it survive.
Can I say one more thing that has worked really well for us besides garlic?
You bet.
We also grow a thing called walking onions.
What is it?
Walking onions.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay, I'm telling you this because we have a whole bunch of walking onion boulders to share.
Nice.
Does anybody know what they are? Okay. They're sort of like, this is a harvested one that came out a few days ago, so it's kind of dry. This I pulled out yesterday, so it's limp, but sometimes they're little like that. But what happens is, like all winter long, all the ones you've left in the soil, you can have green onions the whole entire winter. And these ones, even though it's little, it's sort of shalloty in that it's kind of strong. So, and then what they do is the reason they're called walking onions is they grow a stalk, and then they grow these little bulbils at the top. So let's see if I have one on my stalk, like this. So imagine that this is tall and growing out of here. Then see how it's dry? Then it falls over and plants itself. That's why they call them walking onions, because in theory they could walk across. But they're not invasive, they're not obnoxious, they're pretty polite. And evidently people pay a ton of money for these bulbils. But we are now, and I started my garden of my walking onion patch with something like this much once that I picked up at something at the fruit club. And now we have hundreds. So I have so many that we brought this whole bag of them. If anybody wants to grow these, we have 1 million of them.
Thank you.
So just come grab it.
That's awesome. All right, let's go to pests. Insects, mammals, etc. that's caused problems, and how have you overcome them or not?
Well, based on, the acidity in the
Yeah.
that it changes the pH, and we line pretty heavily every year.
Oh, do you? Every year. Line.
Under trees?
What?
Are you under trees? Are you
No,
high woods?
Yeah, they're wide open.
no, we get our soil tested, and every year, and we have to line every year. Because of the rain. And so sometimes people think, oh, you know, what is happening with wind and all this and that, and they said it makes a big difference.
Thank you. Unless you're growing blueberries and you want it that way.
Right.
All right, good. So thank you. That's not even a pest, but it's a very important thing to talk about is the pH of your soil. Yeah, very good, especially with all the rain that we get, bleaches everything out. What other pests have you run?
Yes, cabbage moths.
Okay, cabbage moths. How have you conquered the cabbage moth?
Not planting cabbage where it hasn't been in the seed period.
Okay, I thought you were going to say not planting enough.
No, that would work. I have not conquered them, is the answer.
Okay.
But things I'm trying to do is rotation where I plant
Yep.
brassicas and literally covering rows with ugly white stuff that I
Yeah.
don't like using.
This was the first year that we made hoops over the bed. I posted a video about it, I think, and it was crazy. There were some leaves that came out of that hoop, and they were just destroyed by the cabbage moths, but everything inside was really good. And it's the real fine mesh.
Yeah.
That worked good. I just used I think it was 1-inch PVC and made the hoop across and strung it. It worked really good for cabbage moths.
You
And
don't
then-
even have to hoop it,
Go ahead.
especially when it's not like you just do a floating row cover, we just lay it over the plants and they'll grow up.
Gotcha. Okay.
If you want to skip a step.
Yeah,
Well, that would make sense, because the leaves are pretty strong.
they're pretty
Yeah,
hefty.
Yeah.
I've done it both ways with hoops. I've got hoops now, but
Uh-huh.
I did it that way first. And the plants have to be to a certain stableness before you can probably do that.
Yeah,
It was
some of
really
my
good
plants
also.
I hoop and some of them, a lot like my lettuce and everything, it's just, I do a lot of floating row covering.
Gotcha. Good.
I've
Alright.
heard of people having success with taking a piece of paper and cutting out a moth, and maybe they like draw a dot on each wing, and just pinning them. I have no idea, but.
And you put that on your plants?
You put
Do
them
they
on
play cabbages for themselves?
Apparently, because there's someone who's already laid eggs on this leaf, so I want to know.
That'd be a fun experiment.
It would be a fun experiment.
Yeah.
My dad came and visited. He's 91. We made, I think we made 22 birdhouses. Half of them are swallows. So we're gonna surround our garden with swallow houses. Hopefully we draw some in, and then any cabbage moth that even thinks about coming across there. That's the goal, anyways. I've tried to shoot them with. I've got a salt little
Salt
gun.
gun.
They're hard to hit out of the air. It's fun.
It's good entertainment.
Okay, what other pests?
So are cabbage moths everywhere? Like, or
Yeah.
Vashon?
Yeah, you'll see them where you are. Yep.
There you go. Sorry, we walked in late. We're in the back.
Yep. What other pests?
Slugs.
I heard voles, I heard slugs. Let's start with voles.
God, they're annoying. We do strawberry. Yeah, our strawberries, this is a little bit funny. The first year we put our strawberry plants in, they were coming. The strawberries were coming, but they were all gone. They were totally ripened.
Oh.
And I didn't think it was a bird because they weren't pecked, but I just put bird net over it because I didn't know what was going on. And then I realized it was holes because what happened is I made a nice little house.
Sure.
Holes and they were protected from the
Nice.
and I had food in the house.
Yeah.
So
Little pantry.
then we made these boxes. We made strawberry Fort Knox. So the boxes have, this is ridiculous. They're like about the size of this table. Yeah, they're huge. And they, on the bottom, they have hardwood top on the bottom.
Half-inch or quarter-inch?
Half inch.
Okay.
She remembers better than I do.
Yeah.
She helped me do them.
Nice.
She helped me with a little burning thing. And then they're hinged, so, and everything is covered with a half-inch hardwood cloth, and we got strawberries. Now we get to eat them instead of the.
Yeah.
But when they eat stuff, sometimes they
Yep, you'll see a beautiful beet. Oh, that's so good. And then you pick it up and it's hollow.
Right,
It's
it's
all
gone.
gone. I posted a video on that a long time ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. We had a really bad vole infestation and couldn't figure out how to catch them. I tried peanut butter, they didn't care for peanut butter. Tried bird seeds, they didn't care for that. Finally, I put out a game camera on a 5-gallon pail and put all sorts of things. And just to see what they would come to, and I looked on the internet, someone said apples, someone said carrots, and they would come out. I had a pile of carrots, and that pile was gone in probably an hour. And they don't eat it there like a mouse or a rat does. They take it back to their home and feed everybody else. They live in a big community. Voles do. So you've got to figure them out. So I then started using, this is my vole display. So I used, voles come in all sorts of sizes, right? You can get up to 8 inches long, and they start coming out when they're really small. So I had to use both traps, and I baited them with carrots. I had 40 traps in my garden with a map where the traps were and little tick marks of how many I caught. But the first day, all my carrots were gone and the traps were not set off. So I'm like, I had to put a screw through here and screw the carrot on, and then I started catching them. We caught 42 in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Figured it out. Yeah, it was a lot of effort.
But they still kept coming.
And we've had 3 or 4 sets of barn cats. You can get barnyard cats from the Humane Society. They're feral cats, but they don't stick around fast. I don't know why. So so that's a way as cats. It's another thing.
Did you tell them the reproduction?
Oh, Jan wants me to tell the reproduction of voles. So this is a math problem if you have kids or grandkids. Voles can have 10 batches of babies every year, and they can have 10 babies in each batch. And a vole can reproduce when it's 2 months old. So, yeah, they can overwhelm your place.
You know what took care of our vole problem?
Yeah,
Were owls.
there you go.
We hired someone to come out who was a bird expert, an owl expert, and said, okay, we want owls, how do we get owls?
Nice.
And he showed us where to make the owl houses.
What kind of screech or barred?
Barred.
Barred? Okay.
And we did, and we now have, I don't know if they're always the same owls, but we have owls, and our vole population has plummeted.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw the Vashon Nature Center, they had an owl cam. And before the eggs hatched, they had, I can't remember the count, it was either 5 or 7 voles in food storage waiting for the babies to hatch, just in case they didn't catch one that night, they would.
That's why I don't have it, because I know I have an owl.
There you go. Yeah, that could be.
So, lots of barn
Okay.
owls, but they don't catch that many voles for us. I mean, I've actually seen them die and hunt voles.
Yeah.
We evidently have enough owls. They really have.
Some barn owls are better at it, what's the deal?
That I don't know. All I know is that our vole population plummeted, and we have lots of owls, and I put 2 and 2
Good.
together.
Maybe you could post on the site if you have a plan or not.
Well, actually, what our bird expert said is where you place the owl houses is really important.
Gotcha.
And I could not really follow his logic entirely, because he said, okay, here, why? And so the reason for that one was different from why he would say it was over here. So I got to the point where, you tell me where to put them?
It works. All right. What other pests do we had? I heard slugs.
Yeah, slugs is a good one. Rats, spring starts. I have a horrible time in my greenhouse keeping it. It might be mice, I don't know. From eating my seeds or.
Yeah, well, you went through 3 sets of corn this year. Did you plant corn 3 times?
3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have
Mice?
starts on our corns.
Do you really?
I don't know what eats them. I was assuming it was birds, but I don't know.
No, I think it's mice.
It's mice for me, it's mice.
Is that,
They don't leave a little hole in the street to grab it and then they do like little.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple years ago, we planted our corn patch in what, 60 spots. 3 came up.
That sounds like us.
Yeah, very nice one.
so mice and them, I don't know, cats and, kind of almost the same thing with wolves, cats and traps, right?
Were you saying about your owls, barn, B-A-R-N owls, or barred?
Bard.
B-A-R-R-E-D.
Oh, okay, because, we have lots of those in our trees.
It's actually an invasive species of owl, but they're here. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, is anyone else bothered by nematodes?
Nematodes?
Yes.
Because that, I am besieged by bad nematodes.
And that's the little.
You can't really see them.
What do they do?
They eat your vegetables. They create a sort of bad situation in your soil. So seeds don't necessarily work well. And so what I did was I went out and I bought good nematodes.
Uh-huh.
And the last time I bought them, there were only 2 sources for good nematodes in the United States.
Yep.
But they work really, really well.
How do you know if it's bad nematodes?
It depends on the vegetable, but for instance with carrots,
Do they just eat it?
there's little
See all the little holes,
right,
and it'll carry the dirt inside those holes.
right, and they can be incredibly destructive. Now the question I go to is why do I have so many bad nematodes? And it had to do with the soil imbalance, which is another story. But at any rate, you can buy good nematodes, and sometimes it's just a good idea to buy some good nematodes and put them in your soil because they can take care of all the bad nematodes if you don't think you've got a problem yet.
Yeah, Karen's a horticulturalist, a soil specialist.
We have a hard time direct seeding a lot. That's why I was wondering that.
I'm sorry.
We have a hard time with direct seeding. Like, one of the problems that I was having with carrots a few years ago was I would direct seed them all. Everybody says you gotta direct seed carrots,
Yep.
which is not true, but anyway. And they would come up, I would get germination, but a few days later there would be nothing there, and I didn't know what was eating them. Is that a nematode thing or not?
Possibly, it's hard to know,
Yeah.
but that's
I
where
never
I
saw a thing doing it.
Could be your voles.
Well, but the voles always come from underneath and they eat the rooty things. And these were just, they could have. I
If
had no
they're-
idea.
yeah.
Cutworm.
Yeah, cutworms.
Sometimes they work, but sometimes they just disappear.
So I'd say when in doubt, just get some good nematodes and just put them in your soil because
Yeah.
you've got nothing to lose.
Yeah, it sounds like it would be a great idea to stick it in the compost and then they would reproduce maybe in the compost and then you spray it everywhere. Does that work? Yeah.
How do you do it?
They come in,
Yeah.
a package. You put them in a vat and spray them.
Oh, spray.
Matter of fact, I don't even spray mine, I just pour it.
Gotcha. Good. So slugs, I heard slugs. This is one thing we do for slugs. Is we set up a bar for them. We've heard that Coors beer does the best. It's kind of fun. My wife always gets kids a Mormon going to the store to buy some beer. That's good. What else do you do for slugs? What's that? Ducks. How do you keep your ducks out of other good parts of your garden?
We can run them at certain times
Uh-huh.
in certain areas, and it just helps cut back on the general population. And then our greenhouses are the ducks can't get in when the greenhouses are closed.
Uh-huh.
And so we can run ducks and chickens around the outside of the greenhouse and keep the
Gotcha.
greenhouse
I kind of do the same.
Ducks?
And I think, yeah, ducks and chickens, I think having them in the garden in the winter,
Uh-huh.
because they're eating eggs,
Yeah.
slug eggs,
Yeah.
and things. And then early season when the slugs are tiny,
Yeah.
before I put anything.
Before you plant? Yeah.
And actually, I got to where most of my garden is, I can't really get down on my hands and knees like I could when I was a little younger.
Bring it up.
So I've got like raised beds, but they're not very high, they're only like a foot high,
Yeah.
foot and a half high. But it's enough of a deterrent that the ducks don't really like to hop up there. So
Mm.
they kind of run around the base. Chickens, I can't let them in there.
Right, they'll go everywhere.
Yeah, that doesn't deter the chickens at all,
That's
so.
good.
On raised beds or just any kind of bed where there's a somewhat porous boundary, I've had really good luck with copper tape.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I regret to say that the RHS just did a major study on that and said it's hogwash. And I have copper all around my raised beds.
So I did this test and I put one on it, and like I put them on it directly when I put mine on, and
Yeah.
I saw them like get a little.
Well, evidently, at least according to the RHS study, it doesn't last.
Oh, well, yeah, maybe it could be.
Maybe after it,
Replace it every year.
yeah, maybe after it oxidizes or something.
Yeah.
And rains and everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, I did find it worked, and I have a tip in case anyone wants to try it, which is that don't buy copper tape that's advertised for plants, because they charge a fortune.
Yeah.
Buy the copper tape that's advertised for musicians, you can get a huge roll.
There you go. All right. It sounds gross. Jan and I will put on our headlamps and go out with a pair of scissors.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just cut them in half and keep going. It's a special slug pair of scissors. And yeah, it sounds, but we've gotten over 300 in a night. So they're out there. And you do that like 3 or 4 nights in a row, and all of a sudden you're down to only 100. You know, so yeah.
We freeze ours. We go out in the middle of the night with our headlamps.
Okay.
Because that's when they're out.
Yep.
We pick them up and put them in plastic baggies and put them in the freezer, which is, I don't like to hurt things.
There you go.
You know? And it's a really painless way to die.
Yep. They just go to
And
sleep.
then once they've frozen, we discard them. But we get probably anywhere between 60 and 70 a night.
The headlamps. Yeah. Yeah, they come out, they're out at night big time. And then also if you put down a board every once in a while in your garden, you know, that's where they're gonna hide during the day. So, and we keep our scissors with us and we'll turn over the board and snip and sorry. Maybe we'll freeze from now on.
You know, it's desperate measures. I mean, you want to save your plants.
What?
The cutworms or the.
Oh, the cutworms?
Yeah, I think it's the cutworms. I'm not positive about that, but they go just under the soil every day.
What can you do for those? Is there anything that you can do for cutworms?
I mean, probably all the usual like diatomaceous herbs or, well, I don't know if that has worms. That's more for the like.
Yeah.
Shelter.
Things of this color.
I've really given up on all of the powders and sprays, and I haven't had good luck
The sluggo.
with them. It's more like, oh, this year the aphids got that one. Better luck next year.
Yeah.
Where I'm at.
We had aphids, not every year. We've had them twice, I think. They got on broccoli one year, and then pepper plants another year, and use a soap and water mixture, which is what we used. Sprayed it on them.
What I noticed about aphids is they tend to attack, not always, but often they attack the leaf plants. Have you ever noticed that you have a spindly plant and it's all full of aphids and then you would.
Yeah.
So I try to, when I see that aphids are showing up, I try to really fertilize those plants. And right now we have some kale growing that's doing pretty well, and often this particular variety of kale will have a lot of aphids. So
Yeah.
try to fertilize and let some plant out these aphids. The other thing though that happens is those great thatchings that we have everywhere. Farmers know, of course. So we try to deal with thatch ant piles that are near the garden. So if they're in the forest, I leave them alone. If
Yeah.
they're near my garden, so you can't necessarily get rid of them, but I have found diatomaceous earth to be pretty reasonable at knocking them back enough that they aren't farming aphids in my mix it all around. I mean, it sucks, you can't have a lot of ants. But then you scoot it away, make sure it's all mixed. Scoot it away, do it again. Scoot it away. Keep doing that for days until you're at the point where you're scooted enough away that you're even digging it out. Eventually you'll get the queen, maybe. You get the queen, the pile all goes. Like, I actually won on one pile, but I have some other piles that are so huge, I don't think I'm ever gonna win, and I just keep trying to knock it back enough to.
Yeah.
I had them come in once and I got rid of them with a lot of sitting that pepper. Cayenne.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, they hate the cayenne.
Okay.
I think grandma always took a pot of boiling water and put boiling water on.
I haven't tried that, but I think it has to do with whether you happen to get the queen. I think it's the same thing. Maybe that's even.
I've seen sculptures made out of like molten aluminum.
Aren't those so cool?
They're amazing.
See the ones that make those mounds?
But
Yeah. And the ants will farm aphids on their plants. Do you know about that? No. Yeah, they're like little farmers, and they will grow aphids on the plant because the aphid will suck moisture out of the plant, and then they kind of milk it. There's no milk, but they take the dew out of the aphid's body. So you have to kill the farmer.
yeah.
I always wonder if they think like when I'm coming around to spray them off or something, there's a holocaust, that's an apocalypse.
Has anybody
Keep our crops
has
together.
anybody had any luck with like ladybugs? Releasing a batch of ladybugs or anything like that?
I tried 2 or 3 times. I'd buy them, let them out, follow all the directions, and they'd be gone within a week.
Yeah. I've had that too.
Yeah.
Or I've tried praying mantis. I never see them. So maybe they don't hatch, I don't know. But you can buy those egg packets. Okay. Anything else? Any other pests?
Deer.
Deer. Okay. Yeah. We didn't have to deal with that in Wisconsin. We had rabbits, which luckily we don't have here. But deer we do. How do you handle deer?
Let them have what they're gonna have, I guess. Hope they won't touch it, but the fence is for the garden.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'm just new here, so I'm like trying to.
So fence has to be 7 feet tall, and usually you buy a 7.5 foot tall, and the bottom 6 inches goes to the outside, and that has to be staked down. If they're going to go through a fence, it's usually underneath. So you stake it down. They make rebar. It's a piece of metal about this big around, and it's got it's like a big J on top, and you can pound that in to hold it. They aren't going to be able to pull that out. That's how we do our deer fence. But other people do really ornate, beautiful fencing around their garden, and it's just part of the landscape.
Something ate my figs. Do you know what?
Deer love figs.
Right. No, but I mean, they were way up in the tree.
Oh.
Raccoons.
Raccoons love them.
Oh, that's what they're doing. I mean, we were gonna go pick them and then all of a sudden.
They're gone. Aw. I had that happen with Honeycrisp apples.
Oh.
It was like the very next day we were going to make applesauce. We had it all planned out. It was Saturday. I go out there Saturday, and we had it was a little tree. There was like 60 apples on it, just loaded. Big. We go out there Saturday morning, they're all of them were
Not
gone.
one.
Not a one was left, and I'm like, oh. Okay.
How about, you mentioned blueberries. I have a ton of blueberries and it's really hard to beat the birds to them, and I don't want to cover.
Yeah.
So it's 80 by 60 feet,
Yeah,
a blueberry patch. That's a lot to cover.
it is.
Yes.
We have a 100 by 50 patch, and I've covered it, and it's not that bad, and I put the net up, in the, like, when blueberries are after it's all pollinated, and then I take it down, and it's actually not that hard.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have to have middle support?
Yep.
How is yours done, Joy? You have a really good blueberry patch too.
Yeah, we didn't put the net up this year. The net had lots of holes, so we didn't take time to mend it. And I didn't notice that many birds.
Oh,
Yeah, so
nice.
I think I'm just gonna get rid of it.
We did one of those metal 10 by 20 garage. Somebody had one that collapsed in one of the snowstorms. I think I've gotten 4 from that snowstorm that we had a couple years ago. And I just put the metal structure up, and then I put the netting over that, but that's not 80 feet.
Right.
But posts, I've seen posts with like a tennis ball on top to do it. I wouldn't leave it out over the winter though, because it'll collapse it. Use 1/2 inch square instead of, we did 1 inch square this year, and we still had some birds that were getting through, and then flickers would get halfway through, unfortunately. We only lost one flicker.
It was so sad.
It was sad. So 1/2 inch square and white netting if possible, and what's that? Because it wouldn't shade the blueberries. Once you go to 1/2 inch square, I think you're starting to create some shade.
The same thing for cherry trees, keeping birds from eating your cherries.
Yeah, keep your trees small.
Yeah, Jerry Murphy does that. He made a little house. We haven't done it yet. We keep meaning to, but he has like a 10 by 10 by 10 house for his cherry, for his cherry trees, and he just keeps them inside. And I've been meaning to do it. So I have two cherry trees, and I'm kind of one next to the other, so I can make one house and cover them both. But he just keeps his trees small enough to just keep them inside.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of cherries.
Who's that?
Jerry Gertrude.
Fruit Club.
He does that with his nectarines too. And he keeps the nectarines isolated from the rains in the winter, so they don't get the leaf
Oh, it's
curl.
on 107.
On the
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
No. He's up on the north end.
he's on the
Ferry Hill.
Southworth Ferry Hill, the
Oh.
real steep hill, kind of across from David, the bee guy.
Or if we finally.
Any other pests?
Symphylax.
What is it?
Symphylax.
Teach us. I don't know what that is.
Does anybody know what they are? They're native to western Washington and Oregon. And
Synphylans. Okay.
And they're a little white centipede-like creature that lives under the soil, and they can go down as far as 4 feet.
Uh-huh.
And there's nothing that you can do about them, really, except, because we've had them, and they'll sort of be a problem in an area, and then maybe not be there a few years later, but they'll move over here.
Sure.
And they eat all the root hairs off of plants. So you can see pictures, if you Google it, you can see pictures of the crops. And you can see where the synphylans are in the patch, because the crops will be stunted.
Do they turn into a moth or something?
No,
No.
they're
Okay.
they're just what they are.
That's what they are. Okay.
And there really is, they don't know anything to do for them because they can go down so far in the soil. The more compost you add, and the better you are your soil, the more arid it is, the happier they are.
Yeah.
And they can be really devastating. I mean, I've had years where, my peppers will have to be that big.
Huh.
They're a lot like the nematodes in terms of the kinds of damage that they do to the roots. But we actually, for the very first time, had success in treating them, in that we had our chickens in our greenhouse for a year. So we have 2 big greenhouses, and so we're rotating them.
Yeah.
And resting, and we put the chickens, started out with 60 chickens for a year in the greenhouse, and it's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, so the chickens they've got cover and protected, and
They must really work the soil then, huh?
yeah.
Yeah. That's good. They find them all.
And they ate enough of the synphylans that you don't have a problem.
No, I think they absolutely lay waste to everything, every living thing.
So maybe they didn't have anything to eat. You're saying the synphylans.
And also, it's hard to keep the greenhouse. When I don't have the drip lines going, it's hard to keep it wet. We actually have an overhead sprinkler that I run once in a while to cool us down.
Yeah.
But I think that maybe I don't know. In the winter, there's going to be water going under the.
Yeah.
So. But
Cool.
it worked. I mean, I'm sure that we still have some, but it really
And plus all the fertilizer you got.
Yeah, no, it was.
I'm sure that was a big.
We had the best year that we've ever had in our greenhouse after doing that. So I highly recommend when you're resting an area, if you have chickens, just, put them in for a period of time, if you can.
Yeah. Good, thank you. Any other pests, or should we go on to weeds? Weeds. The next one is weeds. How do you handle weeds? Weeds grow really, really good here in the Pacific Northwest with all the rain that we get and everything. How do you handle that so you're not down on your hands and knees all day long, every day for 4 hours?
Wheel hoe.
A wheel
hoe.
Wheel hoe. Okay.
Yeah, because you just, when the weeds are small, you just walk with it.
You just walk down.
It's like pushing a wheelbarrow, but you're weeding.
Okay.
As you go, and you can get attachments so that you can go, get to, they're the stirrup.
Yeah.
Figures
Like
that,
this one? Like
yeah,
that?
but the physics are amazing because you have like a wheel that's about this big and then 2 handles and the wheel rides in front of the stirrup hoe. And so you're just pressing gently down. It's not nearly as much work
Yeah.
as doing it on the end of a pole where you're providing the pressure when it's actually.
Yep.
So and if you do it, early and often, and you can cover big areas.
Cool. What else? What else have people used for weeds?
Vinegar.
Vinegar?
Yeah. Horticultural vinegar.
Okay.
Depending on the time of year, because it kills everything.
Yeah.
But it is superb at getting rid of weeds. You spray once, and they're gone.
Nice.
And then you may have to do it a year later, but that's been, of all the things that we've tried, that is the most successful. But it has to be horticultural vinegar.
Okay. Yeah, not
Where
just.
do you get that?
Just Amazon has it. As a matter of fact, it's possible that even Thriftway has it.
Ace and I will lumber do, for sure.
Ace has it.
Sorry?
And
Ace
I
and I will lumber both do, for sure.
Good. Okay. I heard you said something.
Yeah, we mulch with wood chips,
Oh.
pretty heavy, and
Okay.
if weeds do come, it's just really instantly.
Easy to pull out. You do that too, don't you, John? You do a batch of wood chips just about every year. Okay. Cool. So that's kind of there's a method of gardening that is at the root.
Back to Eden.
Back to Eden gardening. Yeah, root stout is straw, right? Back to Eden is that. So you put new batches of wood chips on every year. How many inches?
Pretty heavy.
6, 4,
2 to 4, depending on
2 to 4.
what it is.
And you just make sure not cedar.
Yes. No
Or
cedar.
black walnut.
Well, not pure cedar, a little cedar mixed in, like if you're getting it from the tree services, it's okay to
Not pure.
And for my walkways where I never want anything to grow, I get solid cedar.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
It's separated, that's why.
Well, you can get solid cedar from Lawrence Center.
Yeah. We were thinking of doing rocks in our walkway. Anybody do that? Like the weed barrier underneath, and then it's the drain rock.
Yeah, like the 1 inch or
Clean.
3/4 inch.
No, it's the round stuff, but it's more of a. Yeah.
Seeds will fall, but the thing is they pull so easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I use over the rock. I use a torch, and when I see little ones coming up, I have one of those. It's about 4 inch. Just can't do it when it's in the drought time. I don't want to burn the island out. Yeah. What other things for weeds?
Well, I've had some success in at least small areas with starting from scratch and and repopulating the area with like calendula or purslane. Those things, so at least I'm making the dominant weed, and it's something that I like and it works with other things I can grow.
Yeah, that's good. Convert a whole area. Nice.
I've done the wood chip thing before, not here on Vashon, and I got overrun with roly-polies,
Oh.
which then were eating my seedlings. Have people had issues with roly-polies here?
We've had more issues with slugs because unfortunately it gives them habitat. So, like if your starts don't get big fast enough, and you can have a lot of wood chips, it's gonna be an issue. But we just sort of assume that all the bottom leaves are gonna be pretty sweet.
Yeah, we did.
Trouble with rototillas, we have them, but haven't had a problem.
2 years ago, we had a big, we've been watching videos all winter long and blah, blah, blah. So we got 2 big round bales of straw over the entire garden, probably a foot deep in a lot of places. That was the best habitat for slugs. In the spring, we're like, ah, and I ripped all of it out.
The straw has gone away.
That was like, oh my gosh, that was the best place to raise slugs.
But the straw is gone.
Yeah, the straw is gone. It got mixed in the compost pile and other places. But okay, we have. I think I've complained about this online. We had a wildflower spot. Got one of those wildflower mixes that are supposed to be for the Pacific Northwest. Beautiful wildflowers and morning glories in the mix. Never plant morning glory in your garden. And so now it's moved in the course of 7 years. It's moved probably 150 feet, and it's now in our garden. So we're dealing with all of that. All of our asparagus, every asparagus stock is with morning glory.
Have you ever used silage cloth yet? It looks like just your average black plastic, which is, not what a lot of people want to use, but it's much stronger and has a UV layer underneath. And it protects the soil and keeps the soil completely healthy, or even more so. But it takes out the seeds, and it doesn't completely get out the morning glory. It's the only thing that helped me. That I've been using it on beds as I take them down, let it do that, and then I let them grow in, and I can unseed it and begin to preferentially, little bit by little bit, take things back. It's amazing to get as a big, if you got like a big flat area that was just grass that you wanted to turn to something else, you could buy a big piece of it and just do it in a couple of weeks, and it's like $200.
It looks like white plastic, but it's white on one side.
Oh, I've never seen it.
Diane Emerson.
So that's how you could start a new garden if you wanted to.
Right, grass in 2 weeks?
It flattens it and it makes it so that you can pull it out in a little bit longer for grass. Like for Bermuda grass, it's not like 2 weeks. I have to do it a bit longer for that. And that's another big problem I have.
Yeah.
So.
The creeping grass.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got that as well. One thing that we were thinking, our theory on morning glory for next year, we're going to try it, is put some stakes, let them crawl up the stakes, and then put a bag over it, and open up the top of the bag and use the vinegar, and then close it up.
Does the vinegar kill the root or just the top? Who was using vinegar?
Does the vinegar kill the root, Karen?
I'm sorry, what?
Sorry. Does the vinegar kill the root, or is it just the top?
That's what I've heard.
It kills at least the roots of grass. There are,
It does.
I suspect, some roots that are pervious, but everything that we use it on seems to kill it for quite some time.
Yeah,
If the morning glory is, if the leaf is alive, right? If it was viable yet, I thought we read that then it will carry it into the root system.
Yeah.
I've read that that's not true with vinegar, but if that turns out to be true,
We'll let you know.
Well, we're gonna find out next year.
Yeah, right. So we're gonna try that, and then we're starting to make large raised beds. I got a salvage of like 4 foot wide metal siding off of a building. So our raised beds will be into the ground a foot, and then 3 feet above, and maybe that'll stop some of the roots, I'm hoping. It's an experiment. I like to experiment, that's what we do a lot of. Any other weeds? Solving weeds? You use the black stuff from, was it Jones? We use that in Johnny's, the black weed cloth that's a little bit more stout than others that you get at like, the hardware store or something like that. Has the lines on it. I think you guys use that on your strawberries, right?
No, we don't use that on the strawberries, we use that to clean the roses. Yeah. The strawberries we punch down through, we use that in other classes.
So we've used that where we put like where we have our squashes growing, we'll put that black stuff down and then plant our squash, and then they can go wherever they want, and then they're not competing with weeds. We also did that with our cabbage this year that had the covering on it, but the morning glory went underneath and found where the cabbage were growing, and then they came out. But by that time the cabbage were big enough, like, we didn't worry about it.
And it was over the potato patch, and so we had from last year, so we still have potatoes growing everywhere in amongst the cabbage.
We gotta
so.
harvest those soon. All right, diseases, any other diseases we wanna? I know there was one thing, squash has a bug that gets into the vine, right at the base of the vine. I've seen that, like pumpkins. I don't know what it is.
Squash borer, but we don't have
Do you know how to protect it? Squash borer?
we don't have it, so I
I've heard if you take, well, I think people are seeing it in the corner, things are coming, but I've heard if you take cedar chips and put it around the very base of the plant, it can help.
There we
We've
go.
had a problem with the flies that lay their eggs on like cabbage and stuff, and then the maggots go down and eat the base of the, and it's got into our melons also. I know we've lost melons and squash that way. And so when I put the starts in the ground, I always cover them with the grenade so that the flies can't come in, and that
So it's a row cover.
So is that the thing that just kind of eats it off right at the ground level?
no, that would be more like the cutworm. But this is where you pull, like the plant is super healthy and then all of a sudden it's dying and you pull it up and its roots are just full of maggots. Yeah.
And that's the squash thing in particular?
Well, it's our squash and brassicas that it gets. But so I just always, and carrots for the rust fly. So when they're little, we always put remain over them so that the flies can't lay their eggs.
And what was that called?
Relay, it's the white floating around that you've been talking about.
Yep.
Relay's one of them.
Remain.
Is there a variety of zucchini that you don't get the mildew that you recommend? The last couple of years I've had that.
Yeah.
Mildew and
Is that when the rains start, or is that before the rains even?
yeah, once the rain, yeah, but no, I got it, I don't know, just the last few years I've got.
No, I noticed that on ours this year.
When it's the end of the plant's life, it's just gonna do that around
No,
here.
I got it,
If you're getting it in the middle of the summer, you don't have enough fertility in your soil.
okay.
Because that's what I've observed in my garden is, last year I put my squash on a bed that chickens had been on the prior year, and it was such a fertile patch. And I had one squash plant that ran 25 feet and produced 116 pounds of winter squash off of one plant. It was ours.
Nice.
And there,
So that was high nitrogen from the
it was a lot of
chickens.
nitrogen, which they usually say those squashes don't want, but I don't think that's true. Because then the other thing that happened is that year, I mean, the leaves were up to here. It was outrageous. And
So it had manure?
and I had hardly any powdery mildew
Okay.
all the way until I harvested everything. There was very, very little. There was a little at the very end, but just the stuff that we get. This year, I put it in a bed that was not very fertile, and I was getting powdery mildew in July.
Yeah, no, that's true, and the other reason you can know that is because your peas always get powdery mildew at the end. And that's still at the beginning of the season, when you've got all these other plants that will get powdery mildew, but they don't.
Yeah.
They're very young and healthy.
Yeah.
And so it's always the plants that are at the end of their life cycle or they're struggling.
They're struggling. So it is the end of their life cycle.
Yeah.
It's just early, and so you don't have
Right.
very much fertility.
Right,
So
exactly.
I'm sure it's more than nitrogen.
But the other thing is to always look for the seeds that have resistance to disease. Because if you have no problem, I mean, we have a problem with how they're loaded, but that I found is one of the best ways to help stave it off until the very end.
Is there any spray that you can put on that decreases the
I just
powdery?
started picking the leaves up and then it didn't.
Yeah.
Independent plant is not, those plants just don't produce much, like we just did it, regular squash.
Yeah, I didn't get very much this year.
Yeah, it's really, I think aphids and powdery mildew tell you everything about soil fertility. You just don't know. So your plants are strong enough to, and those things to me they're there because they're trying to recycle the plant in the soil. They're trying to end your garden.
So another thing is on tomatoes, those will start turning yellow, the lower leaves and stuff. We always pick those off right away so it doesn't spread to the other tomato leaves.
Yeah, that's tricky too. I mean, they say like to keep rubbing alcohol and keep dipping your tools in rubbing alcohol or cleaning up between plants. And I've just found over the years that when I really observe, like my shirt rubbing against one plant, when I go to the next plant rubbing against
You got it, yeah.
It's hopeless. And I mean, maybe you've had luck with it, but I haven't been able to keep it back. It more has to do with like, are your plants healthy and that kind of thing. But also the pruning can, it causes a point of injury to the plant where that can be.
Is she looking for a bathroom?
Yes.
It's on this other way. Sorry. That door. You bet.
For the powdery mildew, the best I've found for spray is diluted milk. You can do like 1 to 10, 1 part milk.
Is what?
Diluted milk spray.
Interesting.
If it's not too far gone, and like if the plant's still really producing, you want to save it.
Yeah, thanks for that. Cool. And big pumpkins like milk. That's what they say. They grow those real big ones. They give them a gallon of milk a day.
It's the calcium.
All right, cool. Any other things, pests, diseases that you want to talk about?
Actually, it might be of interest. The people who are doing the most research on powdery mildew are the marijuana growers.
Oh.
So when universities and other sources are not doing much research because there's lack of money, you look to see what the marijuana industry is doing. And what they have discovered is a product that works beautifully, only I can't remember the name of it.
Is it neem oil?
Huh?
Neem oil?
No. It's something I've never heard of.
Yeah.
And I have a nephew who is active in the marijuana community, and he brought some for a plant that I have that's covered with powdery mildew, and I've tried everything that I know.
Yeah.
And he sprayed whatever it is.
Is it potassium bicarbonate?
No. Again, I can find out the name of it because it's, it's obviously available, but what's interesting to me is it's the marijuana industry that has done the most research.
Yeah.
They have they also be where they are a big market, and so there's a lot of people trying to sell them things.
Well,
But it worked on your plant.
But it worked.
beautifully.
Great.
That's awesome.
So I'll give you the name, you do your own research, but I'll come up with it.
Post it. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to gardening, other gardening conversations. So I got watering. How do we water our gardens? You can do it by hand, right? What are other ways that you can water your gardens? What works best for you guys?
I mean, we have to use drip lines because we have too much water.
How many acres do you have under garden?
Well, we have farm up to like 3 acres at a time.
Yeah.
We're not doing that.
So you use drip lines and they're on timers. So with a drip line, what's the GPM at the drip? Do you use a 0.5?
10 psi, you mean
How many gallons per minute?
oh gosh, I don't know, I mean, we do all this stuff for the people and figure out how much time we want to water, I can't remember.
Okay, no worries. How often do you water? You water daily?
It depends on if it starts, they have to be watered daily because otherwise they dry out.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the bigger plants would back off from that, try to do longer, deeper soaks.
Okay.
And so I have a 24-hour schedule in 3 zones.
Yeah.
I coordinate them all so that we're only watering
One zone at a time. So like when the plants are small, you're watering every day. How many minutes?
Well, I mean, it depends on the weather conditions.
Oh.
really hot and dry, and I'm starting to think in the midsummer that it's gonna be a little bit longer to keep the soil wet. And I also, that's another reason I'll use the roofing,
Uh-huh.
is so that they don't dry out, especially when I'm direct seeding, I pretty much have to do that. And the other thing I'll do is barefoot, I just walk down on top of my seeds when it's hot and dry.
Yeah.
So that I compact the soil a little bit as it gets so fluffy that they dry out just instantly.
Okay.
And then that also holds the root plants in.
And then when they're older, are you watering once a week?
Well, it depends
Twice?
on the plant.
Okay.
So, and the needs.
Let's get into it. Tomatoes.
Oh, gosh. Those are twice a week, and I usually do it, I mean, it depends on the season, so, like daylight and all of that will play a role in how much
And the
is
wind.
evaporating, and the wind and everything.
Yeah, okay.
So it's usually like, between a half hour to an hour and a half. Well, no, I don't do an hour and a half. I also have a once a week watering. So it'll be like an hour and a half to 2 hours once a week.
Okay.
And then it's usually between 30 and 45 minutes on the twice a week.
Twice a week. Good. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was one of the first.
15 minutes for every day.
This is one of the first years I've done a drip.
Uh-huh.
We used to do overhead all the time, and then I'm figuring, I'm watering everything, including all the weeds.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we did a drip, and that worked pretty good, but I overwatered. I was watering every day for 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, it was too much, and the tomatoes started splitting and stuff like that. So
We do not have a reservoir. I would like to put it in drip so we can hand water, but because we mulch really heavily, we water a lot less than everybody else in.
and you're hand watering?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I don't like that because we have enough garden that I don't particularly like it. David doesn't love it.
It takes a lot of time, doesn't it?
But I would think in the summer we don't water our tomatoes more than, I mean, we have, like this year I had a little bit, little drip happening on some of our tomatoes, but we still don't water our tomatoes more than every 2 weeks in the summer, even when it's really hot.
That's the benefit of the, the wood chip grinder too.
Sure.
So there's a downside of the slugs, but the upside,
Retainage.
it really retains moisture pretty well, even with the lettuces. I don't even farm my lettuces all that often. If it's really hot, for sure, like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
2 years ago, when we had that 100-degree weather, we were watering every day or twice a day like everybody else. But also I didn't have it behind my grapes that year.
Yeah.
But this year behind my grapes, when they had that nice shade, even though it was 95 degrees most times.
Yeah.
I mean, sure we watered, but I don't think I watered the lettuce more than max twice a week when it was super hot, and otherwise once a week, and then by the time it cooled off, now we water very little with all that mulch.
Nice. Second.
I'm just curious how many people do no-till? How many people till and how many people don't till? Or we're both kind of in the like no-till.
Yeah, we've got half and half.
Yeah, I'd say both, yeah.
I feel like for me, I'm just making the switch
Yeah.
from that. I've been gardening my whole life, or my parents did even, but they were all till.
Yeah, till every year.
Till every year.
Yep.
This is like what you do. But
Yeah.
I've taken it to a whole nother level of like organic and not tilling. And
Nice.
just really like nerding out on soil structure and.
Do you broad fork to open it up a little bit?
And then you don't have to water as much.
And that's how my brain got here is water. You just don't need to water it nearly as much.
All of the facilities on there,
Yeah.
bringing water.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. Anybody else on watering?
I have a newcomer's question.
Go ahead.
When do you need to start watering regularly in the year? Because where I came from, we didn't get any rain after March, but it rains more here.
Yeah.
So, do you need to start running your drip like as soon as you get your garden in?
Well, it's, I mean, I guess the earliest for me, I want to go barefoot, but we go barefoot a lot. So you can kind of feel the moisture in the soil, and you really gotta just, put a spade in and see how wet it is, and just monitor it that way, because it is a little different every year, and it depends on your soil type. And your soil type
Like
Usually
average.
mid-June. I mean, I have an acre of just lavender that I only water twice a summer,
Yeah.
but that's lavender, so it just
Yeah.
depends on what you're doing.
I would set up, so if you're gonna go drip, I personally like to set it up right away when I'm putting in my plant.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, it's easier.
Right.
Get it all in and then,
Yeah.
and then monitor the soil. And I got lazy this year and I just set it up and let it go once a day for 20 minutes and just, I got too lazy. But so just monitor the soil. And yeah, thank you. Anything else? Water is an important one. Okay. How about winter gardening? Is there anybody?
Ask you.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like backing up.
Good.
So, I just moved into this garden space that was already established, raised beds, and so I thought, well, the first year I'm just gonna buy starts. But then you say, okay, well, it's, 60 days till this thing matures, or 90 days, but I don't know how old that start is. So how do you know that? I mean, it's such a basic question, but, my husband kept saying, do you think it's ready yet? I'm like, I don't know how old it was when I got it.
So, nice thing, well, I actually speaking with Michelle Crawford, she has a specific potager, but she puts the starts out when they're ready to go into the soil.
Yeah.
So she gets them started when they should be started, and then she'll farm them off so that they can go directly out. And then you buy them and they can just go right in.
And so-
So she'll
Yeah.
hold them until they're ready.
Right, but then, are they 3 weeks old by then, or?
Oh, sometimes they're 2 months old.
Oh,
I
months
sometimes
old.
over.
So you don't really need to care because most of those dates, they talk about the date as from transplant, not as
Yeah.
from seed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, see, that's what I need.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the like 70 days to harvest, that's from when you put it in the ground,
Oh.
not from when you start the seed.
Interesting. Learn something new every day. That's good. Anybody else? Anything? Winter gardening.
But also, what's confusing in terms of whatever the plant is, what's confusing about not doing, what plants are you not able to tell when they're ready?
Well, I was really successful with putting a little watermelon.
Wow,
I know, I had these two, I was
That's
so
awesome.
excited. The other two died right away, but
Oh, you were trying to figure out, is the
It was-
watermelon ready?
They're
Is
really
it ready?
hard.
I
So
don't know.
my best guess on that, and I've not been successful at growing watermelon, but I've heard on YouTube, just wait until the little
kind of dies.
yeah,
Yeah.
until when those
Yeah.
little guys turn brown.
Really?
That is one of the closest ones to
Yeah.
that melon.
That's what I figured, it's done growing
Yeah.
if all that's.
Oh,
good.
in the
When
store,
you harvest the watermelon?
in the store they
Or-
say, look for the ones that have
Right.
more of a yellow splotch rather than a white splotch. I don't know if that's true, all
Yeah,
varieties.
that's part of it, and then the feel of the watermelon, you get a sense for it over doing it over time, but you can tell when they're Rockford,
Yeah.
and,
And
the
they sell
bottom, and the color of the melon, and the yellow underneath is
Good.
indication. But there's a bunch of different things that you do, just like in the store, it's very similar to the
Yeah.
store.
Yeah, it's probably a trickier one, I think everything else is more obvious.
I always let Joe make the watermelons, because he's really good at it. There's a bit of an art to it.
Yeah.
The store's reliable, if you pick one that has a yellow splotch, it's pretty reliable. But I don't know about the different skins and make that vary.
How about winter gardening? That was always a new one to me because we had 3 feet of snow where I was in the winter, so that didn't happen.
We do a lot.
Okay.
You do a lot?
I put a couple beds in, hoping.
Yeah. What did you put in them?
Arugula, spinach, bok choy,
Uh-huh.
I think baby bok choy maybe. And then I have a garlic bed. And carrots, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have other things they put in?
I grow lettuce every year in my greenhouse.
Okay. Right through the winter?
Garlic and shallots going in soon.
Yeah.
Yep. You wait for the first frost to put the garlic in, or just before it?
I do it right after Halloween.
Okay.
I don't say I'm an expert though.
Yeah. I'm waiting on my garlic too, because you don't want the greens to grow, right, on your garlic. You just want the roots to grow.
Yeah, early November.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Then I'm not late.
One thing, we have like eaten tons of greens out of our garden in the winter and starting to get baby joints. So you do have to be careful in the Pacific Northwest because our light levels are so low.
Because of what? Slow?
The light levels are so
Uh-huh.
low. I think it's the nitrogen, it's something that builds up and it actually can deplete calcium from your bones and
Really?
so just go easy on the greens in the dead of winter.
Interesting.
Because it can, and we have had that where we've gotten like.
Are you potentially growing things that are high in oxalates?
No, it's not the oxalates. It's like spinach is one of the ones that does that kale and stuff. It's just in the dead of winter. It's
I mean, spinach has a non-trivial amount of oxalates.
yeah, that's true.
I'm only asking those questions because we eat greens out of our winter all year round. I mean, I work our garden all the time and I haven't noticed that at all.
Yeah, well that's good.
Yeah, and I have a fair bit of information about nutrition in my professional life, and I haven't heard that. So that's what makes me wonder about oxalates, because for sure oxalates can cause plenty of issues, including arthritis and
Yeah, well, I
issues.
definitely noticed that with tires and stuff.
Yeah,
Hmm.
okay.
And I could be wrong, I mean, but it's,
And it might be that you're more sensitive, I'm not denying it at all, but some people are more sensitive to oxalates and have issues in their kidneys that have a hard time, washing them through.
yeah.
Would something happen to be oxalated cooler weather that would make it more so?
Maybe it condenses it.
I don't think so, it's more about the acidity of the urine. Because some people are prone to oxalate kidney stones. I just wonder, but I hope you don't have any kidney stone issue. But some people do have an issue with what's the right word? Just dismissing that stuff out of the body, and urine acidity is a factor in temperature I've not heard of before. But because some people can't really eat too much oxalate, and other people can. There's actually just individual sensitivity about oxalates.
Yeah, well this is, if it's true, it is separate from oxalates.
Okay.
Well, thank you for that. Yep. Okay. So I thought it was cool that when we first moved here, it's all of a sudden, hey, did you do a winter garden? I'm like, I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yeah.
So that's something.
So we grow arugula all winter and we don't protect it anymore. And even that year, a few years ago, that it was foot and a half of snow for a week and a half.
Yeah.
The arugula just stood back up after it took a few days. It just stood right back up. I didn't even cover anything.
Nice.
We grow winter lettuce, and I don't really bother to cover it until it's pretty sure that it's going to be really cold, and then I
Like in the 20s.
yeah.
Okay.
Like if it's gonna freeze,
Yeah. Yeah.
then I'll put, I usually just have little, like lately, I just have little low hoops, and then I put plastic over that. But I really, maybe I get around to it in December or something like that, I just don't really worry about it, until then. Some lettuces we haven't had to cover, but I have a little bit more variety now.
When you say winter lettuce, is it specific lettuces?
Yes, there's certain lettuces that are more hardy. So I specifically grow, one of the ones that I really like is called Four Season Marble. And it's been super duper, it's actually, if you look in a sea catalog, it's gonna be the French name usually, Brevet de Quatre Saisons. So look at an N.
Okay.
Not four. But that one has been super hardy for us, and it's still really tasty and grows great in the spring and the fall also. And I don't have any problems with it in the winter.
So do you have to, when would you plant that seed?
August.
In August?
Yeah.
So that then you plant it out or you direct
So
sow?
I seed it, I grow starts.
Yes.
I start my seeds in August, and I get them out end of August, early September. And some of them I do a little bit earlier, and then that's more of a fall crop. Like we're eating lettuce now.
Sure.
From the August stuff. Some of it I didn't get in until later, like the third week in September, which is late. So I don't really know what goes in winter.
Yeah.
might get hurt. So this is another thing that is generally, you know, ones that don't grow big enough before winter, they're not growing too much during the winter, a little, but very, very slowly. But the ones that make it become March and April fresh salads when everybody else is just putting their seeds in. You have
Boom. Yeah.
salad already, which is great. The other variety I grew last year that worked pretty well over the winter is called brown goldwing, and it overwintered fantastically. So during the winter, it got a little bit more mushy than the four-season marble got. But the thing that's not nice about four-season marble, it's a very horizontal plant, and so it gets muddy.
Oh.
And the thing that's nice about the brown goldwing is very vertical. It doesn't get very muddy, but the outer leaves get more squishy, mushy, black. The other lettuce that we've done had great success with is called Merlot, and it's a big, frilly, red, beautiful lettuce. The heads are really small, but it's really great when you just have a couple of dark, red, frilly leaves in your salad.
Yeah.
So all of those, I don't think the Merlot would probably need to get covered. If it was in a different row, I probably wouldn't bother. It's super duper hardy, but it's little. Those all do well.
Cool.
We do leeks, we do walking onions, we do garlic. Really big usually. And then we overwinter broccoli, although I don't have a fantastic quantity of broccoli that shows up. This year I'm hoping the cabbage works. I have not gotten the timing worked out right on the cabbage yet for January canning cabbage, but they're nice food plants right now, so I think maybe this year.
Cross your fingers. Good. Anybody else on any other winter plants that they do? Anything in the greenhouse?
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Does anyone know anything about aquaponics in the greenhouse in the winter? No? No one here does aquaponics in the winter?
I've studied aquaponics and I've got the stuff to do it. Just that project hasn't reached the top of the list yet.
Yeah, I'll tell you next year. I'm trying it.
Are you going to do aquaponics or hydroponics?
Aquaponics.
So with fish?
Well, fish is the difference. So you're not using fertilizer in the water like in hydroponics. You're using fish. I'm not doing it to eat the fish.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to did it with their food.
She did.
With it when
Yep.
and it was fun, but it didn't produce a ton of food.
No.
Okay. Well, somebody else, the people that had our house before we did, put a 30-foot dome, it's like 30 feet across, but it's round,
Big.
18 feet tall greenhouse with aquaponics set up in it already. But it never was finished. They never finished it, and they moved on. So I decided, okay, I've been using the bed just for putting pots on, but I've never actually used the aquaponics aspect.
Sure.
So I'm going to nerd out on it this winter and try to do it next year.
Good. That'll be exciting.
So we'll
Sounds
see.
fun.
I grew up with a hydroponic greenhouse, so it's not a foreign idea to me. My parents had greenhouses and lots of food, but they were not organic. So
Yeah.
they just put, the blue powder in
Right.
the tank and put it in all the tomatoes. So I'm not doing that. But, so I'm excited to learn something new. I don't know what I'm getting into. I'm hoping it's worth my effort.
There's a YouTube guy that does vertical aquaponics, and they sell they're called zip towers, I think they're called. We bought 4, but we just never set them up. We set them up for 1 year, and they did grow the lettuce and stuff like that. That's
It's a good way to keep them away from slugs.
It is. Yeah. All right, and tell your daughter gives you snails to put in the fish tank, and then the snails get everywhere. But that's another story.
Oh, that's another story.
Let's go to soil fertility. What do you use for amendments in your soil?
Actually, I go back to when I retired. I went back to school in horticulture and discovered soil, and so I've taken a lot of courses in soil. And the course that made the most impact on me was a course I took at Oregon State in soil remediation. And I discovered the sad state of Vashon soil.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it has to do with the amount of arsenic and lead that is in our soil. And I know that King County came out and removed a lot of the soil from certain areas. And I don't know whether your gardens were part of that or not. But this is something that is really important because the arsenic on this island is really bad. And so if you haven't had your garden tested for arsenic, I suggest you do that. There's a number of labs. It is not real cheap, but it's worth it. There's things you can do. One of the things that I did about 8 years ago was talk King County into letting me have a controls plot and an experimental plot. And I measured the amount of arsenic down near Lori, which is, the plume was worse in the south part compared to the north. And I measured the arsenic in both, and then what I did was I had learned that if I could spray microorganisms, whole set of microorganisms, on my experimental plot, the theory is that they would either sequester or metabolize, at that point they didn't know which, the arsenic and the lead. So I did that, and it was significant. By the end of 6 months, when it got measured again, the amount of arsenic had dropped significantly. So I went to King County, full of enthusiasm about, this is what you need to do for the forests, right?
Right.
And they said to me, your PhD is done in that topic.
Jeez.
And I said, it doesn't matter. You know,
The science worked.
Science works, and you can do your own small study, but they wouldn't do it, and I don't know why. But what I've tried to do since then is to get the word out that this is not a huge big deal, because you can buy the microorganisms, and I suspect more is known about today which ones are the best. Very easy to spray. You just put it in a regular sprayer and spray it on your property, but you need to know what the level of arsenic is in the soil that you're using. But that, to me, is the most important thing that anybody can do on Vashon, is to find out what the arsenic and the lead measurements are.
Thank you for that.
It's not that expensive to test, we had it done.
Right, it's $35.
Yeah, I think it was $50 for the county or something like that.
Good.
We're not in an area of high arsenic and lead, luckily. But I would love to know, I have a friend who gardens and she would love that information.
I'm sorry.
Will you share that information about the microorganisms, like in the group or something like that? 'Cause
Sure.
I know a friend who.
Happy to do that. I want to get the word out because this is something, you don't need to be a scientist to do this.
Yeah.
You know?
That'd be great. I wonder if has anybody read the book Mycelium Running
Yes.
by Paul Stamets? So he uses mycelium for mushrooms.
Yeah, and that works too, but this is a little bit faster from
Sure.
what I gathered.
Okay.
Israel is the one that has done most of the research on this. And they utilize the spraying of microorganisms as a general rule.
Yeah.
And so most of the research on it has come out of Israel.
Awesome. Thank you for that. What else do you use for compost and soil amendments?
I use rabbit poop.
Okay.
I have a trio of rabbits that I just take their poop and make compost tea out of.
And that you can use that directly. You don't have to wait rabbits and goats. Is that the two things?
And llamas too, I believe.
Sure.
But I have the rabbits, so that's
Nice.
what I use. And I have a 90-gallon tank that I fill with water, and I have an aerator, just like a little fish aerator. And I mean, it's a good sized one. It's have a decent amount of air.
Yep.
And then I let that sit. I literally order these they're like huge tea bags basically off Amazon and fill them with rabbit poop or chicken poop or whatever. My son will go
Making
to
your
the
compost tea.
store, and I just make compost tea and then I gravity feed that in my garden.
Nice.
Just with that, I have hand water. I have drip.
Yeah.
In about 2 acres of land, I have drip set up, but I have hand water.
And when do you apply that?
When?
Yeah.
Depends on the time also do foliar spray, so I can just like spray the foliage with it as well as water. You wanna watch what time of day you do that for sure. But some things are heavier feeders, so they get that more often than things that aren't.
Okay, great, thank you. So
So you
compost
notice
teas.
that like at the end of the season, you put the beds away or before you put
No,
them?
because all winter long when we're cleaning, I have the rabbits are in like, I think they're 15 by 20 foot runs each rabbit. That's like a 15 by 20 foot run and a house. And my daughter's job is to like pick up all the rabbit poop and put it in the garbage cans and put it in the garden.
Gotcha.
So like directly in at least where we put annual crops. So they get well treated all winter.
When we've done it, we do it during the growing season. We didn't do it this year, but not in the winter, because the organisms relate to the roots. The mycorrhizal. It's bacteria and fungus both, but you want, the plant has to be there. But it doesn't have to be. Some of it's gonna live, but a lot of it is relating to the plant for its survival.
Mm-hmm.
Plant food.
Okay. Anybody make their own compost and put that out?
Trying to.
Yeah. One of the better things that we did was we got a riding lawnmower that bags, and I go all over the neighborhood and ask the neighbors, hey, do you mind if I cut your lawn for you?
Would you like my
So I'm picking up leaves, and so we'll probably have one of these on making compost and stuff like that. But that's worked really good. It helps. What's that?
Holy cow, that's amazing. We would let you cut ours.
What about fertilizers? You know, bags of fertilizers that you buy out in the store or
We have
anything like that.
custom blend.
Okay.
So one of the books that we have lots of, we do our own composting too, and I custom blend compost because it's the best. Bionic compost. I use that for my starts. I save it because there's not that much of it. And then we have a normal compost pile for all the big stuff, but the food mostly goes to the worms, and then we get seriously amazing compost for that.
Yeah.
I read a book a few years ago that made a big difference in our gardening quality called The Intelligent Gardener.
Oh,
Steve Solomon. Oh, it's a great book. It's Steve Solomon who wrote Gardening West of the Cascades that you probably all have on your shelves. He's really great. The Intelligent Gardener was super duper helpful for us. He walks through how, first of all, because he's a West of the Cascades guy, he talks a lot about our soil. Like, I missed your name, is it Karen?
Karen.
I think you were talking, or somebody, you were talking about, you always line your soil.
Yeah.
Here, we all have to line our soil, because none of us have enough calcium. None of us, because the rain washes it away. And it washes away other minerals too. But most of us in this area have too much potassium, and a lot of us have too much magnesium. And you really don't want to augment those things. And extra magnesium, if you already have too much magnesium, evidently contributes to compacting your soil. I don't know, I don't have personal experience with that because our soil is so compact anyway. And we definitely don't add any more magnesium because it's so heavy. But so what he does in that book is walk you through getting a soil test. This is not the county soil test. It has to be a different one. It has to be this one particular company that you're going to mail here because it's a different type of test. You're going to mail your soils down and you get a report, and out of that report, you can calculate what you're missing. And we're missing, besides the lots of calcium, we are medium low on sulfur, and we're very low on a lot of the micro trace minerals. So in our case, we have almost no boron, copper, manganese, zinc. So I actually make a custom mixture of all of that. And we supplement that, and then also whatever nitrogen we're using in the moment, which might be, depending on the plant, maybe all we need is compost. We do have chickens, so we have chickens that go into our
Good.
Yeah, but that book is fantastic.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
So the University of Maine is where we send our soil samples to.
Mm-hmm.
Just
How often do you test your soils?
once a year.
Oh, you do?
Why Maine?
Vashon, Maine because it's much cheaper than having to do it here in Washington.
I send our soil to Massachusetts.
Oh,
And
interesting.
one of the things I'm interested in is what assay approach they're using.
Oh,
And so, Massachusetts, which is also cheap, it's got one of the best assays. It depends on how particular you want to be, because King County, for a normal sort of garden thing, seems to be adequate, if not great, and they're free. At least they
we're
were.
not your farm.
Yeah, I know, farm is different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, I'm going to do a time check. We've got just a little over 10 minutes, and I want to make sure that we end on time. So I'm just going to buzz through a couple things real quick. Mushroom mycelium is a real good thing to add to plants. They've done some tests. For those of you who've read that book, Mycelium Running, they did a test on some bean plants. So they had 2 sets of bean plants in containers, one with mycelium and one with not. And they put aphids on the very first bean plant. And in the beans that didn't have the mycelium, the bean plant didn't release an enzyme that's supposed to repel aphids. It didn't release that enzyme until the aphids got on the next plant, and then the next plant, and they all ended up getting aphids. In the mycelium one, it's like that mushroom mycelium communicated between the plants. So as soon as that first one had the aphids, they all produced that enzyme and repelled the aphids. So it's kind of an interesting thing that plants use that mushroom mycelium in the soil to communicate with each other. Leaf mold is another one. Really good time to get leaves right now. You can put them in black plastic bags and just let them sit if they're wet. And by spring you'll have leaf mold, and you can do that in the summer too. But it usually takes a few months, and that's a really good soil amendment as well.
Fava beans. We grow fava beans over the winter as a cover crop.
Oh.
Just for the purpose of putting it back in the soil as nitrogen. And this year, we in a potato bed. That was the primary. And we still use our regular fertilizer, but normally in the past years, our potato will do like. Remember, we have really heavy soil, so we have to do something to lighten the soil.
Yeah.
But in the past years, we've done half soil and half compost. And this particular year, we just didn't have, the compost wasn't ready at the right time. But I had grown fava beans on purpose to put in the potato bed. And it worked amazing. So like at the point where you're planting the potatoes, the fava beans were, I don't know, probably this big. But they overwinter, so you plant them now. They overwinter. And we just took them all out and planted potatoes, put fava bean plant segments, not the beans, plant segments in the row, and then more soil, and they just broke down in place, and potatoes were amazing.
That's good.
It was very surprising.
Yep.
What about fish fertilizer?
That was good. Fish fertilizer? I see people nodding, yes.
Used it a lot.
I've used it inside too on houseplants. It's obviously a little smelly, but when the other fertilizers aren't working,
It
gives
goes
them
away.
good.
The smell goes away.
Yeah, my dog's trying to eat the plant though.
There's the soy, what is it, the tofu factory? They have stuff, but it's really smelly. Do they do that anymore?
Smelly. I don't know what they do there or
When
not.
they make it down.
Okay.
I think that they're not using enough of it, so it's still available. We haven't used it in a while, but the trick is to turn it into the soil immediately. And to mix it, you have to till it, because if you get crumbs of it, it's the nastiest, grossest, slimiest, stinkiest stuff. But,
That's a lot of adjectives.
yeah. It works, it's nice.
And we tried something this year, you know, you watch the YouTube video, So I've got all these morning glories, put it in a 55-gallon drum, fill it with water, and let it percolate for 3-4 weeks. It really stinks, but I'm sure it feeds really well, but I couldn't stand the smell. But that's another way to do it. We talked about a little bit about natural predators, bringing the owls in and things. Perennial plants, I really like perennial plants in my garden. You don't have to really do anything, so you think asparagus. We've got a big asparagus bed that grows really well. You think of strawberries. What other perennial plants are there out there that you?
Sorrel and
Raspberries, strawberries, what I heard.
sorrel, rhubarb, artichokes.
Yep. Okay. So that's like one of those things. Get it in your garden. One of the first things you'll be enjoying it for the next years. And I love rhubarb because every 3 years you're splitting it and spreading it around or giving it away and things like that. Companion planting. That's another thing to kind of pay attention to. If you don't know about companion planting, make sure you read up on it because there's certain plants you don't want to plant next to each other. And then there's other plants that planting them together help deter pests and things like that. So, anybody have anything they want to chime in on that? Companion planting?
I think it's interesting that it seems to me that I've read a lot about companion planting, and a lot of the things that we eat together, you should also grow together, like tomatoes and basil, for instance. Or things
That's true.
Yeah, that's true. Cucumbers and dill.
Yeah.
It's just interesting.
This is a tiny thing, like strawberries and rhubarb. You don't have to grow them together, they just are right together.
And they make the best scones.
I'm skeptical of it. I've not seen any science on it at all.
On the companion planting?
And some of the garden writers that I read are similarly skeptical on but I'm not looking. I mean, I do look a little bit, and I read as some blogger who's regurgitating the same things that everybody else regurgitates, and stuff. Where they all get it from? They all got it from somebody who just said it. Who studied it? And so when I have read, my two favorite garden writers are Steve Solomon and Carol Leckie, and both of them happen to have commented that when they go looking for data, there really isn't anything.
Oh, interesting.
So they've said things like, and my theory is much like theirs, which is, why make it harder unless you know it's going to work? Like, if you notice that something's useful, 100% do it. But there's all the bloggers that repeat the same stuff, and it's like, why? What are you getting out of it? What's really happening? Sometimes there's a reason, like, if you plant nasturtiums because it's an aphid sink, meaning if you have a lot of aphids and you have some nasturtiums over there a little bit, aphids love nasturtiums, so hopefully it sends aphids over to there a little bit rather than on your kale or something like that.
Yep.
That's something that's observable and you can watch it happen.
Right.
But there's a lot of it that I think is just repeated.
I agree.
A lot.
I agree. And for me, because I try to take in crop rotation so much for pest control, that it's almost an impossible thing to keep track of all of it. Like, can't do that there, and meditating it. So I actually, the only one thing that I always do is the tomato basil thing. Because I do feel like it just doesn't like each other.
I think the basil is something similar. I think the certain tomato pests don't like the basil.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Planting calendars. We had someone post, something to talk about. Does anybody use a planting calendar of when to plant what, when?
Sure. It is so unpredictable. I mean, like our January this year.
Yeah, right. Is there any book or any guide that you use?
I don't know planting calendar, but my favorite book to recommend for that is the Square Foot Gardener.
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
And he has just charts of when to plant, and it's all based on the last frost date. And so it's, you can, you know, do it anywhere that you are based on when your last phosphate is. And he does all the sequencing and shows when, you know, it's just, it's so clearly laid out. And
Good.
it's, I really haven't found anything that he's put in those charts that I'm like, well, that's not right. You know?
Yeah.
I think that it's all good
Okay.
information. And I also just love that book for, just kind of sound advice on, you know, when you're just getting started out in gardening to do it small, keep it close to your front door so that you're always passing by, so that you always are seeing what's going on. You can, and you just weed 1 square foot at a time, so you can do it like on your way to the car. And it keeps your garden weeded. And there's just, it's a cool, you know, even just kind of taking some of those principles in the farming, and you don't have to do the square foot
Sure.
method per se, but it's a fun book, and it's just got like really solid information that's really helpful.
I like that the person with the 3-acre garden likes the
Yeah.
square.
That's my ambition.
All right. So this last thing just is methods, and this is all different things you can. I'm not going to have time to cover these or have a discussion about them, but we've talked about a number of these. Having raised beds, container gardening. Jan and I do a lot of container gardening. We have it up on our patio. Even though we have a big garden, we still have some containers of things. It's called an earth bucket. If you look at it, it kind of self-waters. We talked about cover crops a little bit. Hugel culture, we have 3 hugel culture beds. Still not sure. So I'm used to tilling, so you don't really till into the logs in the hugel culture bed, but we'll see how those go. They were put in like 3 years ago. So it's
They're not making your rodents worse? That's what I hear.
Yeah, there have been holes that I've put the smoke bombs in, so for the rodents. We talked a little bit back to Eden gardening is with the wood chips. Ruth stout is with the straw. I would not recommend the Ruth stout here. We tried it. Square foot gardening, permaculture, and that's a whole other thing. The permaculture in the food forests, where you just kind of let the plants choose where they best go and reseed themselves and things like that. So we've got an area of our property that we're trying to turn into a food forest as we go. We talked a little bit about hydroponics and stuff. And tools, we talked a little bit about the tool. This is one of my favorite tools. What is this called again, Jan?
Hori hori.
Hori. Instead of the cheap ones that bend every time or plastic ones that break. We've had these for probably 10 years, and they work really good.
You use it for everything.
Jan's favorite shovel. Not taking a lot of effort, but you don't have to dig the whole Pacific Northwest all the time. And then when I do need to do the Pacific Northwest, my son, who's in construction, gave me this, and it's like, where have you been all my life? It's a steel, real large place to put your feet, and goes through roots like butter.
Yeah. We have a spade like that that's all one piece of metal, and
Yeah.
you pretty much can't break it.
No. Every time I go to my dad's house, I break his shovel. So we finally bought my dad 2 or 3 of those. And they aren't really expensive either. It's kind of a cool thing.
Where's a good place to find like used tools? Used, like I want galvanized stock bins.
Yeah.
Used, where are the farmers putting their used stuff? I don't know where to go.
It's probably all kaput by the time
Must
the
have.
farmers went out.
Yeah. I know some of the antiques.
Well, yeah.
You could ask Mike Urban.
Keep an eye on for you. Mike Urban, the guy that does estate sales. Yeah. I guess the last thing I wanted to mention was we do have missionaries on the island now. If you need some help in your gardens, they're strong backs, young guys. they do a lot of good work, so,
Haven't done anything.
yeah, so. And that's it, I guess. Thanks for coming, thanks for all the discussion and all the input.